Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to talk some yoga vocabulary, specifically Viveka Khyati, or discriminating perception. My name is Douglas Johnson, if you're new here, and I am a yoga teacher at the advanced 500-hour level. And before I get into the talk, I do want to thank my patrons on Patreon. They're the ones who make these talks possible. So if you're interested in yoga and you'd like to help support these talks, go over, check it out. You can join for free. And then if you become a paying member, there's some extras there for you. All right, so Viveka Khyati, discriminating perception. What is this and how does this relate with our yoga practice? How can we use this? Well, there's a few levels in which this is relevant. So one is on the deeper, you might say, metaphysical level of yoga practice. We are trying to discern between what is permanent, what is quote unquote real, and what is impermanent and ephemeral. So in spiritual terms, and I find this transcends just yoga, anything that will eventually disappear, in a sense, lacks a certain kind of reality. That's just the verbiage that was used. I don't know that that is the best way of describing things, because many of us will say, well, this body's going to go away, but it seems really real in this moment. And there is truth to that. I'm not denying that. But usually in spiritual terms, when they're talking about what is real, they're talking about that which is eternal, that which does not change or evolve. And so things like God or spirit, awareness, these things are seen as permanent, whereas all the objects are impermanent. So in this tradition and many other traditions as well, it is basically taught that if you identify with that which is impermanent, you will suffer. And it makes a lot of sense because, right, if I am like, I am this body and this body is eventually going to disappear, well, that's not cool, right? That's problematic. It seems like a problem. I'm going to disappear. I'm going to die. And so we can begin to see where this makes sense for us. If there's some other part of myself that I can identify with that isn't going to die or disappear or dissolve, then that should bring me a sense of peace or calm. So Viveka Khyati on this level is, again, if you look back at the last few talks, we talked about the seer and the seen, Purusha Prakriti, so that which is seeing versus that which is seeing, being able to distinguish between these two. And so again, this cultivates what we might call detachment. So I have thoughts, I have feelings, I have sense perceptions or experiences. And if I can learn to detach that which is perceiving these things or experiencing these things from the things themselves, then at least according to yogic theory, I am going to reduce or perhaps even completely eliminate my suffering. So this is an exercise we can do intellectually, right? I might be able to say, okay, I can see how a thought is transitory or how a certain sensation is transitory. And we can understand that in theory, but then in experience, we might again say things like, I am sad or I am mad. We're identifying with the state that we're in. So this discriminating perception on this level is the ability to distinguish between the seer and the seen, the subject and the object, right? The awareness and the object in awareness. And this is very high level stuff. So If you've never meditated before, if you're brand new to yoga, like this may not make any sense at all, and that's okay. It is a path that unfolds for us over time. We don't need to be in a big rush to understand everything at once, but this video is here when you're ready for it. So this is one level on which we're applying this teaching, that I want to be able to discriminate on that level. So what's an example of this when we're doing yoga postures? Well, again, let's say I really don't like holding warrior two. I want to drop my arms in warrior two. This is something I see a lot as a teacher. Well, I'm holding my arms up, an unpleasant sensation arises, and then that's accompanied by a thought. Oh, I don't like this pose. I don't feel good. I'm going to come out of it. I'm going to drop my arms, or I'm going to change it in some way. Okay, so this is identifying with the objects in awareness. This is letting them move us off center, if you will, because we came to the yoga class to do the yoga postures. And we didn't come to yoga class to make up our own postures. We came to do the postures as they're meant to be done. At least this is what I feel as a longtime practitioner teacher our motivation should be. There are very well maybe people that show up to yoga, and they show up to yoga because they want to feel good, and that's it. So anything that doesn't feel good, they assume that it's their prerogative to just stop. And that's not really the best way to get the most out of yoga from what I've experienced. And I have many decades of experience, so I'm not new to this, neither teaching nor taking. So we get more out of our practice when we surrender to the experience. The postures are going to elicit both pleasant and unpleasant feelings, sensations. Just like life, there will be situations that are pleasant and unpleasant. And it's not our goal in yoga to try and just experience things we like only and get rid of the things we don't like. Quite the contrary. If we really want the most out of our practice, then we want to be creating detachment from both the pleasant, right? Grasping on to the pleasant, holding a posture longer than we are invited to in a class. I see this in class all the time. Some people are lingering in certain postures. And again, I don't mean to say that these are evil acts, bad acts, but again, it may not be getting you as much out of your practice as you can get. And then the other side is, right, changing a pose so it feels better. Now, I do want to be clear here. There are going to be instances where you might be actually hurting yourself doing certain postures, or you might be under an inordinate amount of discomfort or pain just due to the shape of your body, how your body is made up. These are not what I'm talking about here. All right, I'm talking more about just the standard feeling of muscle fatigue or discomfort that comes holding a posture. I'm not talking about you having a shoulder injury and then doing something that's aggravating that injury and just breathing through it. That really isn't very wise. And that brings us to another aspect of our Viveka Khyati, which is another word for the second translation for the second word. Khyati is wisdom. So discriminating wisdom. So is it wise to do something that is going to aggravate an injury? No. Even if there's a yoga teacher standing there yelling at you or giving you the side eye, it's just not wise, right? Just to get someone's approval or just not to get someone's disapproval. So I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about just, oh, I don't like this pose. Oh, this doesn't feel good. Oh, my muscles are tired. Okay, that's where we can learn to cultivate detachment. And this begins to create that space between the seer and the seen, the witness and the object, right? This is a big part of yoga. And again, if you're brand new, don't worry about it. Just focus on your postures, focus on your breathing, get used to the practice. But over time, you will begin to hopefully cultivate this ability to create this distinction. So again, the first level is what is really a more fundamental aspect of myself, right? The seer, the awareness, and what is a transitory aspect, which is the seen, the objects in awareness that are coming and going. Now, in classical yoga, these are seen as distinct things. So the seer and the seen. But in later stages of non-dual teaching, tantric teaching, really object and subject are ultimately one. And I don't want to get too much into that because it's going to take us off on another tangent, but I just want to make that clear. So discriminating awareness, it has this sort of metaphysical meaning, the object and the subject, being able to discern between those. But it also can mean things like, what type of yoga should I be doing? And this might be less obvious than we think. In our culture and country, we tend to just do things that we like. And this is how many people choose their yoga classes. I like this class, I don't like this class. But yoga is really a lot more like medicine, okay? It's a lot more like, what do I need to grow, to be healthy, to really reach my fullest potential, to really see truth? And this is not the same thing as what do I like or enjoy necessarily. In fact, oftentimes it can be maybe just the opposite. And this is one of the benefits of the guru system, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, so please don't think that I am advocating that you go find a guru or that I want to be your guru. But this is, there's good and bad in everything. And so this is one of the good things about a true teacher or guru or somebody who you really have faith in and who has a strong Viveka Khyati. They have a strong ability to discern. They have a good discerning wisdom. So they might be able to see what is good for you that you yourself cannot necessarily see. And so they can literally prescribe you do certain practices, even though you might be like, I don't want to do that practice. I don't like that practice. But in a traditional student-teacher relationship in yoga, you wouldn't really have the option. So in modern yoga, it's completely up to you, right? I mean, people will just walk out of a yoga class that they don't like. They will just skip postures that they don't like. And that's just, it is what it is. But in a traditional setting, if let's say your teacher were teaching a class and you just walked out in the middle of it because you didn't like something or you didn't do pose, you probably wouldn't be invited back. You wouldn't really be considered one of those teachers' students anymore. Teachers really vetted their students in the past. So this can actually be helpful for us. Again, in a modern setting, we tend to not really be comfortable with this kind of relationship. We always want to feel like we're in control, like we have agency, that we can leave at any time. And I don't think necessarily that that's a bad thing, but because of that, we sort of have to decide that, okay, I trust this person or this process or this style or this tradition, and to the best of my ability, I'm going to put my personal preferences aside. Now, once we've cleared up a lot of our, for lack of a better term, trauma or junk, we can eventually begin to listen to our nose, if you will, follow our nose, follow our own intuition, and that can guide us better than any teacher can. But we have to reach that point. And until we do, our teachers can again really make the suggestions of what would actually be good for us to do. And a good teacher will be like a good doctor. So she might prescribe you do something, a certain exercise, something, and then she's going to check in and see how you're doing. All right, everyone. So that's it for today's talk. I'd love to hear
your experience with this in yoga. Remember, we can use this while we're doing postures, but we can also use it during our life, right? Making wise choices, wise decisions. And this is something I think we can always improve upon throughout our lives. We can keep asking, is this a wise choice? Was that a wise choice that I did before? Did it lead to the outcome that I was expecting or hoping for? All right, everyone, till next time, namaste, have a beautiful day.